Dear modelers, I'm Leon and welcome to Air and Ground, now starting the 4th series. Perhaps you noticed it in my intermission video, but I love aircrafts in uniform color schemes, so this one will be about the Bf-109 G6 from Eduard, my second build using this kit. Perhaps you saw it already on my Instagram account where I shared some pictures of the G5 in RLM76, which was published in a magazine from Kagero. Now I want to build another 109 and share it with you in this series. It will be the Grüne 5 in all black from the Ergänzungsnachtjagdstaffel A Black Night Fighter 1944 in service. So subscribe if you haven't already, because it's going to be a challenge to build this 109 in all black and there will be some new big tools I'll use the first time along the way. By the way, what are your favorite camos? Splinter, models, digital, uniform, bare metal? And what are the most challenging camos? Leave a comment on how you would do a one color camo scheme. In my opinion, the Eduard kit of the Messerschmitt Bf 109 in all its variants is one of the best, if not the best kit of this aircraft available while I'm filming this series. So it was an obvious choice to get this one, and it's even pretty inexpensive. A big highlight for me are the molded rivets, which add very nice contrast on a uniform colored aircraft, and the fit is perfect. Because I'm not such a great fan of PE seatbelts, additionally I'm going to use for the first time some plastic seatbelts from fine molds for German aircrafts. They look very nice, but I haven't got an idea how to bend them into the correct shape. So what do I need to work with plastic model kits? A cutter, a hobby blade, fine tweezers, especially if you work with PE, some files. I use the flexi files in 3 different grades. Fast drying glue and slow drying glue, both thin in consistency. Cyano glue for PE parts. For applying this glue, I use the glue looper tool and a fine toothbrush to clean the parts on the go. To start, I cut the dedicated part out of the sprue with the cutter. If the cutting head has a flat shape, I make the cut as near as possible of the part if convenient. Then I cut away the leftover sprue with the hobby blade, or I scrape it away, depending on the part and the result I want to achieve. If I have to drill out some holes, I got a neat little set and I use the drill bits by hand. Then I cut away the leftovers carefully with the hobby blade, and with some glue I even out the surface. If there's still some sprue left over after working with the hobby blade or the spot is visible, I use the sanding sticks to eliminate any leftovers and then glue the part in place. A little storage box or tray comes in handy. After working on some parts, I use my hand vacuum to clean the cutting mat. I love some new and nice cutting mat in black or grey. I cut out the PE parts from the fret with a normal hobby blade on the cutting mat. Then I use a small file to grind down some leftovers. I pinch the PE part between my finger that it doesn't bend while using the file. To bend the PE part, I use a dedicated bending tool. I don't remember the brand I have here, but it's pretty straightforward. Just position the PE part and close the tool, then with a sharp object perform the bend. You can also use your finger to bend it. To attach the part to the model, I use CA glue, which I put a drop on the underside of a paint cup and dip the PE part in it, and then I just glue it into place. Even if there's only necessary to apply glue to a small section of the part, I apply the glue on every joint to get a bond, so that there won't be any gaps between the parts where a wash, for example, could disappear. To think ahead for the painting stage, I like to have every part on a little handle, so I often cut the parts out and leave them on the sprue. Sometimes I glue the small parts on a toothpick with CA glue for better handling, like this seat. Even though I cut out the fuselage halves with great care, there's always some damage in the plastic. I fill it with Mr. Dissolved Putty, applying it with a toothpick, generously on the damaged part. After it's dried, you can cut and sand it down. Again, I fill everything with some glue, closing the gaps, and dry fitting is always necessary to get an overview of the result. I love about the Eduard Profi kits that the Canopy mask is already included. I use a fine and pointed tweezer to get the part of the mask from the sheet, then I position it on the canopy, and then I often use a blunt toothpick to make sure the mask sticks to the canopy. This is the only masking task which I like doing. My approach in the initial building phase is to get as much as possible done, thinking ahead so that you keep building and painting as much as possible separated. With this in mind, I finish, for example, the air intake and the wheel wells without gluing every part together. And I already added the exhaust because you have to squeeze in the part and the PE, which is much easier when the fuselage halves are still separated. To finish the initial building stage, I use some alcohol to clean up the finished parts. I use some Q-tips and towels to clean them to get the grease off the parts, that the paint will stick to the plastic. I realized later on that I should have worn gloves, so I did it again. Now with almost every part ready for painting, we can start with the cockpit. The second building stage will be assembling the cockpit and closing up the fuselage. Then attaching the wings and intakes before painting of the aircraft begins. So subscribe if you don't want to miss the next episode about the cockpit, and a big thank you for watching this episode until the end. Have a great Sunday at your workbench.